Today on the Rockbridge Report, President Joe Biden is calling for major gun control legislation. We'll give you the details and a roadmap for its difficult path through Congress. And then, the latest in the Derek Chauvin murder trial in a day that was seen as a major victory for the prosecution. We'll tell you why. Later, Lexington will welcome its first female police chief, but she arrives in the wake of controversy from her last police job. And then, Buena Vista's third largest employer is leaving the city. We'll tell you what's going to happen to the jobs at the plant. Today begins what golf fans consider their Super Bowl, the Masters. Sports anchor Sean Lee will break down the latest from Augusta. All that and more next on the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good afternoon and welcome to this spring's final edition of the Rockbridge Report. I'm Shauna Muckle, and I'll be joined later this half hour by Jack Hunter, Andrew Arnold's weekend weather forecast, and Sean Lee's sports. President Joe Biden says he wants to take action on gun control. While he waits for Congress to pass legislation, he announced today several executive actions that he says will help. But he stresses it's not enough. Nadia Romero has the story.
After several recent mass shootings and no consensus from Congress on how to respond.
Enough.
President Joe Biden announced Thursday he's taking action.
This is an epidemic, for God's sake, and it has to stop.
At a Rose Garden event, Biden and Attorney General Merrick Garland laid out several executive actions that the White House says will help curb gun violence.
It is a problem that we must all work on together in a collective effort to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and save lives.
Among the proposed new steps, restricting so-called ghost guns built from parts bought online, targeting braces for pistols by requiring them to be registered, and new investments in intervention programs in violence-prone areas. But the actions fall short of what Biden hoped Congress would address.
They've offered plenty of thoughts and prayers, members of Congress, but they passed not a single new federal law to reduce gun violence. Enough prayers. Time for some action.
The moves come after deadly mass shootings in Georgia and Colorado in recent weeks. The White House says it hopes more will be done.
Whether Congress acts or not, I'm going to use all the resources at my disposal as president to keep the American people safe from gun violence.
In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
Lexington has hired the city's first female police chief. On April 1st, city manager Jen Hallis announced that Angela Green will start her new job May 10th. Green was police chief in Portsmouth until last November when she was fired. Green drew international attention after she pursued controversial criminal charges against 19 people involved in the Black Lives Matter protests last summer. The defendants included a state senator and leaders of the NAACP. A judge subsequently dismissed all of the charges. Green has threatened to sue Portsmouth for wrongful termination. The Derek Chauvin murder trial enters its 9th day of witness testimony as prosecutors seek to convict the former Minneapolis police officer for the death of George Floyd. Both sides focusing now on pinpointing the exact cause of Floyd's death. CNN's Daryl Forges is in Minneapolis with highlights from the trial.
30 witnesses have testified so far in the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. And today, the focus turning to medical experts.
Mr. Floyd died from a low level of oxygen, and this caused damage to his brain that we see, and it also caused a PEA arrhythmia that caused his heart to stop.
The prosecution first calling a leading pulmonologist to the stand who reviewed the Hennepin County autopsy of George Floyd.
The way they're pushing down on his handcuffs combined with the street, his left side, and it's particularly the left side we see that. It's like the left side is in a vice.
This as the medical examiner who performed the initial autopsy is now expected to testify Friday. His report stated Floyd died of cardiopulmonary arrest complicating law enforcement subdual, restraint, and neck compression, but the Floyd family's independent coroner's report found he died of asphyxia. Both reports ruled his death a homicide. The prosecution laying the blame squarely on Chauvin's use of force.
And the pressure that was being caused by the body weight could cause positional asphyxia, which could cause death.
The defense arguing Floyd's health and drug use were responsible. An attorney for Floyd's family says the defense's argument is just a distraction.
it's an argument. It doesn't take away from the fact that the use of force here was excessive and it turned out to be deadly.
In Minneapolis, I'm Daryl Forges.
Youth sports and after-school activities appear to be causing COVID-19 clusters. That's according to the CDC, after several coronavirus outbreaks have been linked to school tournaments or extracurricular activities. In today's Health Minute, Steve Nanas has a closer look, including recommendations from health experts to keep kids safe.
Youth sports may be one factor fueling the latest spread of COVID-19. The CDC now says youth tournaments and extracurricular activities are creating clusters where coronavirus can spread among children.
We're working to facilitate increased testing that is happening on the ground in the context of youth sports.
Health officials say as kids continue to play indoor sports like basketball, hockey, and wrestling, it's causing an increase in COVID-19 cases in some parts of the U.S.
We are seeing a higher proportion of younger people who are getting ill and unfortunately getting hospitalized.
In Florida, the CDC reports the virus was linked to high school wrestling tournaments in December where 38 people were infected. And in Minnesota, officials there say the B.1.1.7 variant, first found in the UK, spread through one county where at least 68 cases were linked to youth sporting events.
School sports, particularly team sports, which people engage in close contact without masks. I think that is what is explaining these surges of cases in young individuals.
So what do you do if you have kids in sports? The CDC recommends minimizing the time spent indoors and reduce the amount of time players spend in close contact with each other. For today's Health Minute, I'm Steve Nanas.
Authorities say the U.S. government has picked up nearly 19,000 children traveling alone across the Mexican border in March. That's the largest monthly total ever recorded, and a major test for President Joe Biden as he reverses many of his predecessors' hardline immigration tactics. The number is double the amount in February and 5 times more than in March of 2020. Virginia became the first southern state to legalize marijuana. Lawmakers voted to approve Governor Ralph Northam's proposed changes to a bill that will allow adults to possess and cultivate small amounts of the marijuana. The bill goes into effect in July. Meanwhile, Northam announced today that he is backing Terry McAuliffe in the race to succeed him, handing his predecessor one of the contest's most coveted endorsements. Virginia law allows for an individual to serve multiple terms as governor, just not consecutively. When we come back, we'll take you behind the scenes of the Munters plant decision to leave Buena Vista and the impact the loss will have on the city. And then you can now just drop by any of the regional Rockbridge libraries. We'll show you what programs are still affected by the pandemic.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Jack Hunter. Buena Vista is still buzzing about last week's announcement that Munters Corporation, the third largest employer in Buena Vista, is leaving for Botetourt County. Avalon Purnell looks at how the decision went down and how the city will be affected.
Munters Corporation surprised Buena Vista officials when it announced plans to relocate its plant on Magnolia Avenue. Buena Vista's marketing coordinator, Christina Ramsey, says city officials had no idea that Munters was considering a move.
We heard just an hour before everyone else did, unfortunately.
Ramsey says Buena Vista stands to lose between $130,000 and $140,000 in revenue from utilities and taxes on machinery and tools. Munters Operations Director Brian Frost says the timing and sensitive stock information prevented the publicly traded company from including Buena Vista in the process earlier.
It wasn't done out of any kind of slight or any kind of ill will. It happened to be the timing. We had to get a lot of communication out in one day.
County Administrator Gary LaRue says Botetourt County offered Munters $150,000 in job training credits and a $300,000 credit toward the purchase of the property. Munters Data Center's president, Michael Gantert, says the company wants to continue to employ all 200 employees from Buena Vista at the new facility. Gantert says the building in Buena Vista limited what the company could do.
The facility that we're in today was not designed for manufacturing large HVAC type equipment that we manufacture.
Gantert says Buena Vista's distance from Interstate 81 made it difficult to ship its heating, ventilating, and air conditioning equipment.
Units have hit trees and power poles and bridges and things like that. So from a logistics standpoint, it's also a challenge.
Construction on Munter's new facility in the Botetourt County town of Daleville will begin later this month. As of today, no deadline has been set for employees to decide whether they will stay with Munters and work at the Botetourt County plant. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Avalon Purnell.
Local libraries are looking a little less empty this week. Megan Murchie-Bama tells us how Rockbridge Regional Libraries have welcomed visitors back after the pandemic limited services for months.
Young and old alike are grateful to be back among the books. Last week, Autumn Welch and 5-year-old Winter Welch came back to the library for the first time since the pandemic started.
What books did you get? A dump truck, and what's that about?
Flying a kite.
Flying a kite.
Wendy Redfern is the Children's Programming Specialist for Rockbridge Regional Libraries. One of the programs she runs is a story time for kids. She's been posting video story times online, but she says it's not the same.
When you're doing a story time, the whole goal is to teach these early literacy skills and to sort of instill a love of reading and books. And that's so hard to do when you don't have children in front of you.
But those children, and everyone else, haven't been able to visit the library for much of the past year. All libraries closed in March 2020 when the pandemic hit. Buildings gradually reopened, but when cases rose and a staff member tested positive for COVID-19, libraries closed again and reopened by appointment only. But now book lovers can walk right in again. Library director Julie Goyette says she's enjoying seeing some normalcy.
It's hard on us not hearing those little voices.
While children can come inside now, in-person events are still canceled. But Redfern hopes the libraries can start having in-person programming again soon.
My heart says, we're on the right track. I don't know when we might be able to offer that again, but I'm ready when we do.
Until then, you can watch story times and other virtual programming on Rockbridge Regional Library's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube pages. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Megan Murchie-Bama.
VMI cadets will be participating in field training exercises this Friday through Tuesday. There will be brief traffic delays due to buses and marches to the sites. You may hear weapons training throughout Rockbridge County this weekend. The University of Richmond's Board of Trustees has suspended its decision to leave names associated with racism on 2 campus buildings. The Richmond Times-Dispatch reported Monday that the board is reviewing options for a broader and more inclusive process. The board says it expects to share its plans soon. Coming up next on the Rockbridge Report, with an end in sight to the coronavirus pandemic, we tell you how some workers are preparing to return to the office.
Spring has sprung here in Lexington, but along with it will be coming some April showers. I'm Andrew Arnold, and find out what you can expect this weekend in my weather report coming up.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Andrew Arnold. Here we're taking a live look in downtown Lexington on Washington Street, just outside Sweet Things, where you can see the clear skies we've been experiencing in Lexington the past few days. These clear skies have come along with some really nice warm weather. High of in Lexington today of 75, low of 55, with barometric pressure sitting at 29 and 91/100 inches of mercury. Bit gusty outside today with wind speeds at 11 miles an hour and humidity at 48%. Looking at the western part of the state, you can see some isolated showers that are going to be moving east across the state today. As into the evening, around 8 p.m., they'll be hitting our area with some rain. But there's no rain at the moment. It's clear skies in Lexington, currently 74 degrees. Same in Buena Vista. Down south in Lynchburg, 75 and sunny. Up in Stanton, 72 and cloudy. And just east of that, 76 and cloudy in Charlottesville. Looking at the western part of the state, 74 and cloudy in Covington. And down in Roanoke, 73 and cloudy as well. These warm temperatures are going to stick around moving into the weekend. On Friday, where there's a high of 72, low 55, with partly cloudy skies. And on Saturday, high of 70, low of 59, with some thunderstorms that in the evening that are going to continue moving into Sunday morning with a high of 74, low of 52. On Monday, clear skies, high of 76, low of 52. And on Tuesday, partly cloudy skies with a high of 74, low of 51. That's all for weather. Enjoy that warm weather outside before the rain comes. Additionally, the pandemic abruptly forced millions of people to work from home. Now, employers are getting ready for workers to return to offices across the country. But, as Vanessa Yurkovich reports, some people are dreading the prospect of returning to their desks.
That's it. That's my commute.
For Tom Martinez and millions of other Americans, this has been the morning commute to work. In homes across America, work from home is the new way to work.
Do you feel like you were able to do your job from home?
Oh, absolutely. Pretty much everything that I do relies on digital tools. So I'm in front of a computer 90% of the time anyway.
Martinez works for a major publisher. In a year, a lot has changed. He's moving to upstate New York. His 11-year-old son, Logan, who has ADHD, is thriving in virtual learning.
I'm super happy.
And he loves working from home.
At first, I wasn't sure what that would mean, but I think now I've seen that there are a lot of benefits to not having to perform tasks in such a very compartmentalized and rigid order.
But now he says his company, like others, is figuring out how to bring employees back into the office. Citigroup says they hope to have 30% of their U.S. workforce in the office this summer, while New York City plans to bring back 80,000 city employees starting next month.
Good girl.
Taylor Segmiller, a psychotherapist, says she could be back in the office within 30 days.
What is your level of comfort and anxiety?
I would say definitely some anxiety, definitely some anticipation.
For the past year, Segmiller has seen her patients virtually and says she's shared concerns with her employer about a return to in-person work.
We've talked about some of the concerns with being in very small rooms, face-to-face. Sometimes those rooms don't have windows. A lot of times they're not very well ventilated. You know, it's trying to find the balance between what is the best care for somebody versus what is the safest for everybody.
Coming up on the Rockbridge Report, Day 1 of the Masters is underway at Augusta and local high school football playoffs began this weekend. Sports anchor Sean Lee will break it all down. And then we'll tell you about a man who ran from Disneyland all the way to Disney World. All that and more coming up on the Rockbridge Report.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Sean Lee, and it's time to talk sports. The Masters is underway in Augusta, Georgia, and Justin Rose has an early lead at 4 under. Dustin Johnson, who won back in November, came into the tournament as an early favorite. However, it hasn't really panned out for him. He sits at 2 over, tied for 34th. Among other favorites, Rory McIlroy sits at 4 over, tied for 63rd. Jon Rahm is even, tied for 9th. Justin Thomas sits at 2 over, tied for 34th as well. And Jordan Spieth currently at 1 over, tied for 22nd. Rounding out the leaderboard after Justin Rose, we've got Brian Harman tied for 2nd with Hideki Matsuyama. Both of them are 3 under. Tied for 4th are Will Zalatoris, Webb Simpson, Christian Bezuidenhout, and Patrick Reed, all at 2 under. The tournament will run through this weekend and end on Sunday evening. And for a more serious story now, authorities in South Carolina have confirmed that former NFL player Philip Adams was the person who killed 5 people, including a prominent doctor, his wife, and their 2 grandchildren in South Carolina. They told a news conference Thursday that they had not yet determined a motive. York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson said evidence left at the scene of the shooting led them to Adams as a suspect. And now to football. James Madison University remains atop the FCS polls. The Dukes remain number 1, but they could go into the playoffs on April 24th, having played only once in 6 weeks. The Dukes, who are 4-0, received 30 of the 41st place votes in this week's poll, but barring a late development, Saturday will mark their 4th pandemic-related weekend off in the last 5 weeks. And locally, it may be April, but it's playoff football season for local high schools. The undefeated Rockbridge County high school football team enters the round of 16 of the state tournament this weekend against 5-1 Heritage. They play in Class 3, and over in Class 1, the 4-2 Perry McClure football team plays against 6-0 Narrows in Class 1 in the round of 16. Both games will be played this Friday at 7 p.m. Rockbridge County will play at home, while Perry McClure will travel to Narrows High School. And well, he's not Forrest Gump, but one man ran all the way from Disneyland in California to Disney World in Florida. Don Muchow has more.
I had no idea.
Until he heard the cheers, Don Muchow didn't know what to expect.
Security guard said, "Oh, are you the runner?" And I thought, "Oh my God, you know, here's the escort off Disney property." And
he ran from Disneyland in California to Disney World in Florida, and getting a big welcome at the Magic Kingdom, he felt his spirit lifted.
I love you guys. This is the best surprise in the world.
Don's 59. He's an Ironman athlete from Texas, and he's nearing the finish line of a truly cross-country run. He planned to start at the Pacific and end in the Atlantic Ocean. Stopping at the Disney parks was a happy accident born from a conversation with a confused friend.
And he said, "Well, so I assume you're running from Disneyland to Disney World?" And I hadn't actually thought about it that way.
As a fan, though, including Disney was a great fit, and he says the push he needed to finish the last leg.
I've just been on cloud 9 since then.
His biggest motivator, though, the reason he's running about 2,800 miles across the country, he wants to show his type 1 diabetes isn't holding him back. And after decades of defying limitations from the disease, he wants to prove to others they can too.
Make that choice rather than the choice of fear.
After seeing all the sights a run across America has to offer,
I'm starting to sort of ride that wave of hope to the shore.
He's looking forward to taking in this one to finish off his journey.
That's all for this semester's Rockbridge Report. Stay up to date with news throughout the region. Visit our website at rockbridgereport.wlu.edu. Before we say goodbye, we want to thank our colleague Minha Ahmad for her 4 years of work in the control room crew of the Rockbridge Report. We wish her well in grad school. Thanks for watching.